Cox heir slams capitalism after securing hundreds of millions from his family. Like, I stumbled upon this, and it's like, anytime you see like a super like rich kid, you're like, what is wrong with you? Like, you could pretty much have like done nothing in your life and lived like a like just an awesome existence without doing anything, and yet you end up turning into some like crazy super duper communist, which like it doesn't even make sense, right? You become a like massive communist after you basically get multiple hundreds of millions of dollars from your family business. Like it just seems insane to me. So a cop hating heir to the Cox media empire ripped his sprawling businesses as rotten capitalism days after claiming he had secured multiple hundreds of millions of dollars for himself as he cut ties with his wealthy clan. And also, you just gotta love it that basically, like, this individual probably has not contributed at all to the business, to the family business, and has this amount of money, right? So, James Fergie Chambers, a 38-year-old professed communist who also loves guns and has the letters ACAB standing for All Cops Are Bastards on his neck, said he was outraged at his family over their $10 million donation to the Atlanta Public Safety Training Center, also known as Cop City. And you know, this is pretty funny because we're also talking about someone who's probably has and probably will pay for extremely upper class, super expensive private security, right? Who were probably also former cops. Like, again, anytime I see something like this, it's so absurd to me. Because, like, for example, let's say that I was a kid of a billionaire, right? Would I complain about the family being a $1 billion business or something like that? No. What I would do if I was in that scenario where you were basically guaranteed multiple hundreds of millions of dollars from your family business, I'd go lay on a hammock and drink a bunch of energy drinks because I just like energy drinks and I don't really drink. But it's like, why go so extreme to some sort of like weird scenario instead of just be like, you know what? I'm just going to enjoy this massive amounts of money that I was guaranteed. Like it just doesn't make any sense to me because there's no point to it. So, in an exclusive interview with the Post, Chambers said this week that his family's gift to the police last month was the final straw in a lifetime of build-up to cutting ties with his family, ranked by Forbes as the eighth richest in the U.S. with a fortune of $34.5 billion dollars. Like, this is so much money. Like, so much money, right? My family is a rotten capitalism firm, like the rest of them, Chambers said, claiming that he lives a humble life in New Hampshire with his partner and four children compared to his Atlanta based relatives. He is the firstborn son of James Cox Chambers, the co owner of the NBA's Atlanta Hawks with a net worth of $5.65 billion, according to Bloomberg's Billionaire Index. Atlanta-based Cox Enterprises was founded in 1898 by Chambers' great-grandfather, former Ohio Governor James M. Cox, who made an unsuccessful run for president in 1920 against Warren G. Harding with Franklin D. Roosevelt as his running mate before going on to build his industrial empire. The powerful conglomerate has grown to include Cox Communications, the nation's third largest cable company, and businesses including Auto Trader, Kelley Blue Book, and Valpak. That is actually like super disappointing that he is like connected to that technically. Personally, I don't spend much money on myself. I drive a 3-year-old Tacoma, and I live in a 3-bedroom house, he claimed. I don't even like to fly, never mind own a private jet, he added, noting that his extended family is all about maintaining dynasty. The family fortune built by Governor Cox was bequeathed to his two daughters, Barbara and Ann Chambers' grandmother. Before Ann died at 100, props to her, in January 2020, she distributed her shares to her three children, who included James Cox Chambers, who reportedly owns a 17% stake in Cox Enterprises. After Cox Chambers divorced Fergie's mom, he married the daughter of Saudi arms dealer Adnan Khashoggi and fathered another son. After hearing about Cox Foundation's Cop City donation, Chambers said he proceeded to call his cousin, Alex Taylor, who has served as the president and CEO of Cox Enterprises since 2018, to tell him, "I don't want any part of this." I was disgusted by it, Chambers said of the Cop Training Center was expected to occupy 85 acres with classrooms, a burned building in Mock City that will even include a nightclub upon completion later this year. And Chambers went on to score himself an alleged payout more befitting an oligarch than a proletariat. Exact figures and details of the deal must remain confidential, Chambers said. I will be worth multiple hundreds of millions of dollars, and I will continue to have considerable income for the decade or so to come, he tweeted. Chambers added that with his exit, he took the opportunity to extract as much from the Cox capital as I possibly could before I die. And when the Post reached out to Cox Enterprises for comment, a spokesperson said Chambers has never had an active role in Cox Enterprises or any of its businesses. Which, is basically makes sense that he wouldn't necessarily have a part in it. But this is also a situation where, like, you got to be kind of careful who you give like a percentage of your company to, or have like, if you were to basically run like a family business or something like that, and you want to like make sure that the owners of the company, which are more than likely the family members, are actually doing right by the company per se, where it has like similar values to like the foundation of it. And you probably got to have like stipulations in it, like, okay, only people of like the bloodline can technically be owners. Then also the people that can be owners of the bloodline, they have to actually work inside the company, have like some sort of contribution to the company to actually be able to have shares in the company or have ownership of the company. Like you could structure those things to where it would actually make sense instead of just giving shares to a family member just because they're a family member, right? Because it's basically like a situation like, say you were to create a company, you do all the work, like literally all of it, and then you have a kid, and just because you have that kid, you're like, you know what, kid, when I die, you are going to get 100% ownership of that company, right? Even though you didn't really contribute anything to it, but you're going to have 100% ownership of the company, and I'm just going to like, pass away and just give it to you, right? That like literally makes no sense because that person has no connection to the company basically at all, doesn't know what's going on, can't actually do anything in the company, can't run anything, can't make decisions that actually make sense. Like it's just dumb. Chambers said he plans to use his purported windfall to support pro-communist organizations. He has previously worked with progressive groups like Rise Up Georgia, Occupy Our Homes Atlanta, and a number of other action-based collectives across Georgia and New England. Now, here's the thing too. Like, I don't even necessarily care that, like, as to what he's going to do with the money, because the reality is, it's not his fault that he got this money, right? He was literally just given this money. Basically, he was given a winning lottery ticket, right? If you're given a winning lottery ticket, you got that winning ticket in your hand, you could go do whatever the hell you want to go do with the money from that lottery ticket, right? So he could just go and do this, like even though technically it doesn't really make sense to go pure communism kind of stuff, because the reason why you are super rich is because your family created a massive company, and people, I guess, that loved you gave you ownership to take care of you. Like, so, I don't know. It's interesting. So Chambers may detest cops, but the heavily tattooed Bard College dropout has expressed his affinity for firearms. Earlier this year, he posted a photo on Instagram of the very fave gun in his collection and complained about the Bay State's strict gun laws. I love Massachusetts, but I don't love that my guns have to go to jail when I'm a resident there, he wrote. Being anti cop and pro gun from a revolutionary perspective is the only sensible stance you can take, he told the Post, claiming that the country's issues with guns stem from the fact that we don't live in a worker state, but rather one that's controlled by the few and powerful. He also claimed that MMA and Jiu-Jitsu have an incredibly right-wing, cop-heavy culture, and that something needs to change to create a culture of self-defense on the left in the U.S. I feel like this guy kind of doesn't really know where he belongs. Like, he doesn't like have like a home for himself, basically. It's interesting. So when he showed off his freshly inked ACAP tattoo in 2020, he called it a sound investment in my future. Law enforcement is about the protection of capital and nothing else, he told the Post. Most people with my perspective see the expansion of the surveillance state in the militarist police, even enhanced police training, as a means to bettering police, as simply a consolidation of the ruling class, who is very afraid that the amount of wealth they've hoarded at this point could come to bite them in the butt. In a weekend tweet storm addressed to his friends and comrades, Chambers gloated about becoming the first Cox to fully detach from the company. I did this because I believe strongly that my primary material purpose on Earth is to extract as much capital from that entity as possible in order to build socialist infrastructure and institutions in the 21st century on the domestic and international level, he wrote. Although the thing is, again, he got the winning lottery ticket. He could do whatever he wants with it, whatever, right? But if I was him and my goal was something very specific, like he said, I would probably still have ownership of the company, but use the ownership of the company to generate income for me constantly at a very high level to allow me to basically do whatever I want forever and ever and ever, and fund my desired goals forever and ever and ever. So, like, another way to put it, let's say that I were to actually win the lottery, right? As like an example, because the whole winning lottery ticket analogy. What I would do is use the lottery winnings to create some sort of income stream that is basically everlasting to a very high level to allow me to live the lifestyle, whatever I want that lifestyle to look like, and also fund whatever it is that I want to fund, right? Because like a lot of people who get like massive windfalls and they have like, this like weird heart of gold kind of thing where like, oh, I gotta just like donate all of my winnings, all of my money to like charity and all this other stuff, right? Well, if that's really what their goal is, to like donate a whole bunch of money to charity, what you should do is put your money towards investments so that your investments can basically fund charities even after you pass, where like the money just never runs out, and your goal of funding charities that have very specific goals of those charities, then you could just do that for your whole life and after, right? Because the problem of just donating all of your money to charities while you're alive, and that's all you're doing, it stops. Like when you pass away, it stops. Unless you set it up in a way where the money doesn't run out, like the principal, right? Like it said that they got like multiple hundreds of millions, right? Potentially, right? So let's say that you had like 300 million after taxes or whatever that you got in the bank or something like that. Well, you would invest that so that potentially you could have maybe like 30 million a year for the rest of your life, and that amount also increases over time. So it could be like 30, 33, etc. the next year, etc., etc., etc. Just compounds to the point where not just that you are constantly donating money to specific charities or goals that you want, but you can also constantly donate more and more and more money for all of eternity. Like, because the money just doesn't run out. That's the way that I would view it. Like, I mean, regardless of this guy's like communistic like beliefs or whatever, if my goal was to donate to specific charities and I got a massive windfall of like lottery winnings, I would structure it in a way where it's just lasting forever. Let's see. If you read the history of Joe Stalin and the Russian Revolution, the leaders were all very wealthy. Why are there so many fabulously wealthy communists? Because basically, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I think maybe just because their life is just so easy, maybe. But it's just crazy. Born with a platinum diamond studded spoon in his mouth and wiping with like gold dollar bills. Poor little rich kid, grow up man. What a contradictory buffoon. So this idiot brags about being worth hundreds of millions of dollars. If he were living a normal life, like the rest of us, he would depend on police officers to protect and help him, like we do, but he was blessed into such a wealthy family and can afford a security company to protect him and his family. Why is it all the idiots are blessed so well? God bless our police and military. Crazy. Feel free to give your thoughts if you stumble upon this. I just thought it was interesting because this guy's basically probably one of the richest self-proclaimed communists, I guess, in the world right now. One of the richest, right? At least, at the very least, in America.